Hey folks, George here. We're going to continue our discussion about the morals and ethics around the notion of a right to healthcare. Last time we discussed Norman Daniels' article where he ultimately concluded that the value of equal opportunity is such that it demands some right to some healthcare. This time we're going to examine an article by Alan E. Buchanan entitled "The Right to a Decent Minimum of Healthcare." Buchanan admits right at the beginning, the notion of a right to decent minimum healthcare is very popular. But we should note that not all healthcare is of equal importance. By the way, Norman Daniels acknowledged this too regarding cosmetic surgery, for example, right? The basic view, according to Buchanan, is that there is more of an obligation to those who are less fortunate. Buchanan points out, however, here's the key problem with all of that. Such a right is actually devoid of any content. What does he mean? Well, recall somebody like Norman Daniels who says something like, there should be enough care to achieve sufficient welfare, or there should be enough care to achieve sufficient opportunity, etc., etc., etc. But some people are in a very bad condition. Furthermore, there is a lot of disagreement about what reasonably full and satisfying life really entails. Buchanan considers one thinker, Gibbard, who is following Rawls in a certain way. Gibbard suggests that healthcare obligations should be considered under a veil of ignorance. A very Rawlsian idea, right? Of course, this requires knowledge of general statistical information and social facts and all of that, just like Rawls said. But, Buchanan says, this Rawlsian game is unreasonable here. Why? Because we need to know our values in order to perform an adequate cost-benefit analysis. How can you reason about what is reasonable healthcare if you can't know your own values under a veil of ignorance? Until we understand and know what we have a right to, like for example regarding income, then we can't really determine what healthcare resources we have a right to. Thus, all of this discussion is way too vague to give us any real insight to the question. Buchanan says it's too difficult to distinguish between a decent minimum view and pure egalitarianism. That is, recall in the last video regarding Norman Daniels, where I discussed my lack of height and my lack of strength. There really isn't any good argument to deny that I have a right to healthcare to enhance my height and to enhance my strength. After all, here's a more complicated problem. Why should healthcare be distributed equally, but not other goods? Buchanan asks. What's so special about healthcare? Well, I think Norman Daniels tried to answer this because it offers equal opportunity to all to live a normal, well-planned, flourishing life, right? Except, what is a normal life? Right? And, by the way, all healthcare fails in the end, doesn't it? So then, what right do we really have to healthcare, knowing that we are all going to die eventually anyways? Really, Buchanan is saying, only some kinds of healthcare can be so important as to call it a right. But until we can really decide what this is, all of this discussion is really meaningless. By the way, if we recall Norman Daniels, Daniels admitted that he can't decide and that different societies will decide differently. Well then, this notion of a right to healthcare can't really be meaningful at all until we get all those details sorted out, Buchanan says. That concludes Buchanan's arguments why this right to healthcare is so vague as to be meaningless. See you next time. Bye-bye.